Hey guys, this is RolloutReviews with RolloutReviews bringing you another S.H.Figuarts review. This time it is Drive Type Speed! We're going to set the figure off to the side and take a quick look at the packaging. It's very different from what we're used to seeing. Much smaller, much more economical. It has the figure front and center, and there's not a whole lot of wasted space. You have the rider symbol up in the corner, and a couple shots towards the back, including one with the Trider on. Now, I know a lot of people like to keep the packaging, whether it's for storage or display. So, to give you an idea of the size of this, here it is with a Shinkochu Seiho box. It's a little bit smaller in just about every way. And here it is with a more standard size of packaging, like the one Kamen came in last year. Now, in the box, you also get something a little bit interesting. This very, very fancy advertisement for the S.H.Figuarts Trideron, as well as a couple other things that are getting released. It's very glossy, very shiny, very similar to a booklet you'd get for like an actual car. It's kind of interesting, kind of some cool shots in here. It's not all that special. I mean, like I said, it's just an advertisement, but it's kind of cool and it is in there. So, let's take a closer look at some of this figure's finer details. First things first, between the glossy plastic, glossy finish, and the rubber tire around his torso, this guy is a dust magnet, but he looks very nice. We'll start with the helmet. I love it when they get creative with the Kamen Rider compound eyes. In this case, they are headlights, and they're done very, very well. It's got some silver paint with some translucent clear plastic over the top. Now, I believe that this entire upper section here is translucent plastic painted over, so do what you will with that information. It's got the pinstripes up at the top, of course the rider symbol on his forehead. I think Drive is the first rider since Hibiki not to have a jewel on his forehead, but he does have a little blue stripe going up here to I guess, represent the LEDs on the helmet. Now, the faceplate and the whole jawline here is just covered in greeblies and detail. It's really, really fine stuff going on here. Some vents towards the back, a brake light here in translucent red plastic. Now, the tire, like I said, is rubber. It actually gives this figure a fair bit of heft, even though he is lacking metal feet. He just feels pretty good in the hand. It does make him a little bit top-heavy, and we'll explore that a bit further later on in the review, but yeah, it does give him a little bit of weight, which is sort of nice. Type Speed is written on the tire, and it does have this red pinstripe, which tends to have little dings in it, just because it's paint over rubber. It's got a split here as well, just because of the way it wraps around and is locked in place with this extra piece here. Couple of details on the torso itself. The shoulders have a little bit of translucent plastic, just like the head there, for sort of blinker lights, I guess, in a translucent orange there. More pinstripes, I guess little gas caps here on his forearms. On this wrist here, he has sort of a silver band, and on the other side, he has the shift brace, which is, once again, very well done. There's even a little bit of red there for the button. The Type Speed shift car is removable, and again, we'll explore that a little bit later, but there are no moving parts in this whole assembly. I don't even think it would be possible for them to integrate something like that, but it doesn't really matter. He can, you know, do shift car, shift brace poses without that actually hinging regardless. The belt, Mr. Belt here, is very nicely detailed. The Type Speed insignia is in there right now. That can be replaced with other little faceplates that are sold separately and come in other sets, unfortunately. Again, we'll talk about that a bit later. It's got the ignition key here, and I don't know if you can see that, but there's like an amazingly tiny rider symbol on the top of the key. Again, it's very difficult to show here. Basically the same symbol that's up here. And yeah, that tiny detail is just pretty impressive. There's another one of those towards the back here. More pinstripes on the sides of his legs. I do think the hips look a little bit strange. They're the exact same assembly as the Gaim Figuarts, but the Gaim undersuits were matte and had a little bit more detail. I think the fact that it's very sleek and plain here makes it look more ball-like and maybe a bit more toy-like, unfortunately. But I guess that's not a terrible thing because, well, it is a toy. He has the holster on the side here with Midnight Shadow, Max Flare, and Funky Spike. Each of these are removable here. They attach with a little peg, and there's a little hole on the bottom of the shift car. I don't recommend taking these off very often because of how frickin' tiny they are. They're not Hibiki belt strap tiny or Forze Astro Switch tiny, but they are pretty small, so be careful with that. Of course, he has the little, I guess they're pedal knee guards, I don't know, the shin guards here and the feet, which are nicely detailed. The rider symbol is finally found here on the bottom of his shoe. Last but not least, I think one of my favorite parts about the drive suits are the fact that when you flip them over, there is a plethora of details. Basically, all of his forms are, surprise, surprise, car-themed, and so the back of all of the suits sort of look like the underside of a car, like the chassis and engine assembly, and it looks great. Now, none of this detail is painted, but it's not actually in color on the actual suit, so it doesn't matter if all of these details are picked out, but there is a lot of it, and it looks great. It's fantastic that all of this is here. I mean, it's here on the Tire Koken figure, but it's just nice that there's so much effort put into a figure towards the back when you're not even going to see it very often, but I'm very appreciative of that, and it looks great. So yeah, I am a big fan of the drive suits. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about a lot of his forms, but Speed is a fantastic looking one, and I just love the aesthetic. For articulation, the head is on a double ball joint. However, it is a little bit limited by the tire here. You can't get his head all that far in this direction because of it. The shoulders are on the standard array of articulation here. The shoulder pads are on a ball joint and a hinge, but you can only get the shoulders out about this far, which may be a little bit less than you might expect. Of course, he has the shoulder roll as well, the rotation up here. The elbow, similarly, also is on a double joint, but you can only bend it a little bit further than 90 degrees just because of the way the armor is shaped, unfortunately. The wrist is on a ball joint and a hinge. Now, I mentioned he was top-heavy a little bit earlier, and that's not to say I have trouble balancing him in any poses. It's just that his upper body is much more heavy than usual, so the ball joints in his torso maybe have a little bit of a harder time supporting it. Like, it doesn't just flop around, but if I sort of shake it here, there is a little bit of wiggle, and that's something I'm not entirely used to on Figuarts, but there is kind of a ball joint here and a ball joint down below. It doesn't extend or anything for more range. Now, the belt is a separate piece, technically, but I do think the front section here is actually attached to this middle section because I can't seem to move it away from it. It sort of moves with that stomach section there, but I guess that's not too much of a problem. Unfortunately, if you did pop this off, I don't think you'd be able to have Mr. Belt on his own. Now, the hips can go forward and they can go back, but when you bring them out, especially on this leg, this looks a little bit weird because it's a solid piece of plastic. It's not as bad as, like, the holster for Gaim's sword, but it is a little bit weird. It does look a little bit weird. Fortunately, it doesn't pop off like the Kamen holsters. It hasn't popped off on me, so it is secured to the belt itself a little bit better. You have a rotation here. The knee can bend pretty much the standard range. The ankles can only tilt about this far. They can actually tilt further in this direction, which is always kind of unfortunate. They can go forward and back, and you have the toe. So he's not amazingly articulated. He's pretty much got the standard Figuarts range, but just because of the way the armor is molded, he definitely has limitations. He's not immobile, though, and you can definitely get him into some pretty cool poses, of course. Now here's the kicker, the accessory count. Drive comes with a pair of fists, a pair of calm hands, and a pair of splayed hands. And that's it. Now, some people compare this accessory count to the likes of the original Agito figure, and I don't think it's nearly that bad, nor do I think that's fair. At least these hands are versatile and in character. And that's really all I can ask for. Yes, I do think he should have come with more. Maybe a couple of tire changes standard, and at the very least, the handle sword and door gun. Unfortunately, Bandai's being very smarmy with the accessory distribution in this line. But there's nothing you can really do about that. Now, this figure does have a first run bonus in the form of Volume 1, the Max Flare tire change. I do think that this figure is borderline worth the price without this extra accessory, but if you're going to pick this guy up, I would try and get this as well, because it definitely adds a lot to this guy. Whereas otherwise, as I said, he's very, very lacking. I suppose now we should take a look at exactly what you'd be getting with the first run bonus. Inside, you have a replacement display for the belt. You have a tiny, tiny folded up max flare for the shift brace. You have a couple of repackaged effect parts from the Burning Flame effect set that'll go on the forearms. And you have the Taikokan Max Flare, which looks very, very nice. This centerpiece is a separate section, and we'll take a look at that here in just a bit. It says Max Flare on the side there, and then all across the wheel itself you have some really nice details. Last but not least, towards the back, you do have a Tamashii stage port, which is all kinds of fun. Changing out all of the things is a fairly simple process. First, we're going to remove Max Flare from the belt for continuity's sake. Next, we're going to replace Type Speed in the shift brace with the folded up Max Flare. Just like that. Next, the front of the belt comes off here, minus the display, and there's actually a little peg under here so you can get your nail beneath and pull this piece off. As for the Max Flare display, there is a little port there and a peg on the base plate. Then we can replace the front of the belt. Just like that. Very simple. Alright, for the tire itself, you're going to pull off these pieces here, and it actually leaves behind these sections, which aren't even attached to the central tire. I can only assume that's cost-effective, so they can reuse this center piece without having to remold it for other tires in different colors. Now, Type Speed is actually a little bit different. To sustain the mold from the front, it actually attaches towards the back here, and then the tire itself, because it's rubber, can wrap around the body. Now, unfortunately, he looks super weird without a tire. So if you wanted any kind of tire change displays on your shelf, you're sort of out of luck because he's super inaccurate like this. Now, as you can see, there's a little hole and slot there that fits up with the back, and then you have a square peg that fits up with the front. And there you have the Max Flare tire. Last but not least, you have the flame effects, which can attach to either his wrist or his ankle. We're just gonna put them up here. Now, for the right arm, it's super simple because, well, he doesn't have the shift brace over here. Fortunately, the same can't be said for this side. Now, if you're not careful, this will pop right off and you'll never see it again. So, sort of try and keep it in place and attach this effect part sort of further up on the arm, and you should be fine. And there is type speed all max flared out. And he looks super cool. This is a very nice display. I'm not entirely sure if I'll be displaying him up on my shelf like this, but it is nice to have options, especially when the figure alone comes with nothing else. It's cool to kind of give type speed some other form of attack besides punching and kicking. Despite its shortcomings, Drive is a good figure. The sculpt and details are absolutely incredible, and in my opinion, well overshadow the small accessory count and minor hindrances in articulation. If you love the suit design, you're probably going to enjoy this figure without any tire changes. Although, if you can find somebody selling the two together, it goes without saying the Max Flare add-ons are definitely worth having. Just try not to overpay for them. Of course, if you personally don't care for the suit design or the show, I could see this being an easy pass, especially if you can't get a hold of the bonus. So, that is about it, guys, and this is IX Roll It IX, signing off.